Welcome to the Enriching Book Club, where we take the greatest ideas ever written and bring them to life for the modern mind. Which timeless masterpiece are we unlocking today? Let's find out.
All right, let's jump right into this explainer of Victor Hugo's grand 1869 historical novel, The Man Who Laughs. Now, when most of us hear the name Victor Hugo, our minds immediately go straight to Les Miserables or The Hunchback of Notre Dame, right? But this specific book is an absolute masterpiece all on its own. It seamlessly blends Gothic imagery, romance, and some really razor-sharp political satire. So today, we're going to unpack the brilliant and, honestly, often heartbreaking layers of this story and really dig into Hugo's profound meditation on society, empathy, and the masks that we all wear.
Section 1. A Smile That Endures. Gwynplaine's Mask.
So to really understand this story, we have to talk about the Comprachicos. Kidnapped as a little boy by this incredibly dark group of 17th century criminals, our hero Gwynplaine suffers an unimaginable fate. These were people who quite literally mutilated children for profit, just to sell them off as circus freaks or entertainers for the ultra-wealthy. And for Gwynplaine, this meant being left with a permanent, grotesque grin literally carved into his face. It forces his features into this state of constant, joyous laughter, completely regardless of the actual pain, the sorrow, or the tragedy he might be feeling on the inside. I know, it's a completely horrific starting point, but it sets up one of the most powerful visual metaphors in all of literature. Now, if you're hearing descriptions of Gwynplaine and thinking, wait a minute, that sounds vaguely familiar, well, you are completely right. This grotesque 19th century symbol directly birthed one of the most recognizable pop culture villains of all time. Gwynplaine's carved smile is widely credited as the primary visual inspiration for the Joker. It's just wild to think about how Hugo's exploration of this disfigured outcast has echoed through time to shape modern storytelling.
Okay, Section 2. The Tragic Story. Gwynplaine's Life.
Gwynplaine's actual life journey is just an absolute roller coaster. We start out in his childhood, where, after being mutilated, he's cruelly abandoned in the middle of a deadly snowstorm. But even in that terrifying darkness, he shows his true, innate goodness by rescuing an abandoned, freezing blind infant named Dia. Together, they end up being taken in by a traveling entertainer named Ursus. As Gwynplaine grows into adulthood, the three of them form this makeshift family, performing in fairs. But the cruelty of society is always front and center, you know? Audiences just laugh uproariously at Gwynplaine's carved smile, completely blind to the tragic human being standing right in front of them. And then we get this massive twist in his later years. He discovers he is actually Lord Fermain Clancharlie, the legitimate heir to a massive English fortune. But when he tries to use this new aristocratic platform to actually advocate for the poor, Parliament completely rejects and mocks him. It all builds to a really devastating final act. Dia dies of a broken heart, and Gwynplaine, who just can't bear to live without her, throws himself into the sea.
Moving on to Section 3. A Cast of Contrasts. Opposing Forces.
Hugo builds this entire world on stark, massive contradictions. First, we have Dea. Because she's blind, she literally cannot see Gwynplaine's disfigurement. She represents this pure, spiritual, totally unconditional love, perceiving only his inner goodness and his immense compassion. Contrasted sharply against her is the Duchess Josiana. Now, Josiana represents the deeply corrupt aristocracy. Her attraction to Gwynplaine isn't love at all. It's this incredibly physical, selfish desire that absolutely fetishizes his disfigurement. To her, his trauma is nothing more than exotic entertainment. It's a brilliant juxtaposition, really. Selfless empathy on one side and privileged decadence on the other.
And that personal dynamic perfectly illustrates Hugo's broader attack on hereditary privilege. On one side, you've got the starving commoners living desperate, incredibly hard lives of poverty. On the other side, the completely indifferent aristocrats and corrupt political institutions. Hugo paints the English Parliament in this novel as almost a literal theater, a place where wealth violently protects itself while entirely ignoring human suffering. Gwynplaine, having actually lived on both sides of this massive divide, tries to bridge the gap, but he finds the aristocrats completely lacking in basic humanity. Bridging these two wildly different worlds of the commoners and the elite is Ursus. He's the skeptical philosopher, a makeshift doctor, and a fiercely loving father figure to Gwynplaine and Dea. But what's really crucial to understand about Ursus is that his sarcastic, biting observations throughout the novel are actually Victor Hugo speaking directly to us. Through Ursus, Hugo delivers these incredibly sharp, unyielding critiques on society, religion, and just the deeply flawed nature of human institutions.
Which brings us to Section 4, Appearance versus Reality, the central theme.
Let's really break down the primary symbol of the whole book. Society looks at Gwynplaine, and they just see a ridiculous clown, right? A freak to point and laugh at. But his carved face is actually a tragic mask. It symbolizes hidden suffering, the deep pain we all carry that others just can't see. It represents massive social hypocrisy, where society actually causes a wound and then turns around and mocks the scar. It's a hugely powerful metaphor for emotional imprisonment, and ultimately it represents the masks that everyday people are forced to wear every single day just to survive in a judgmental world.
And the symbolism definitely doesn't stop with the smile. The tragic irony here is that the people with perfect eyesight, the wealthy, the powerful, the everyday crowds, they completely fail to recognize Gwynplaine's goodness. Meanwhile, Dea's physical blindness actually grants her true spiritual insight. She sees his inner beauty perfectly. We also have the sea acting as his ultimate equalizer, representing freedom from societal judgment, inescapable fate, and eternity. And of course, Parliament stands as this towering monolith of institutionalized privilege, actively resisting any sort of justice.
The core of this whole thing is captured perfectly in Gwynplaine's own desperately asked question: am I what I appear to be or what I truly am? It is a profound identity crisis. Because even after he gets that mind-blowing twist and discovers he is actually a wealthy lord by birth, he realizes that his true identity doesn't come from his title or his wealth or his carved face. His identity comes purely from his character.
Finally, Section 5, Hugo's ultimate legacy, philosophical depth.
Hugo argues forcefully throughout this entire narrative that our civilization, quite frankly, just rewards the wrong things. We reward appearance over character. We reward inherited wealth over actual compassion. The Man Who Laughs essentially proves that true greatness lies entirely in empathy and moral purity, and absolutely not in your wealth, your status, or your hereditary titles. Gwynplaine's tragedy isn't his face. His real tragedy is living in a world completely incapable of seeing beyond it.
So I'm going to leave you with this profound thought to chew on. In a world still so deeply obsessed with appearances, wealth, and status, are we truly capable of seeing past the surface to recognize authentic humanity? Or are we, just like the crowds in 17th century England, merely judging the mask? Think on that the next time you find yourself making a snap judgment about someone. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope it sparked your curiosity to look a little closer at the world around you.